In the blackness of the mere, the monster waits. He waits in the shadows of a time forgotten, a time when the world was a wilder, colder place, and the boundary between the hall of men and the lair of beasts was a line drawn in fire and blood. He waits for the sound of the scopa's harp to fall silent, for the mead to dull the edges of warrior's wit, for the great golden door to be barred against the night. This is the nightmare that has haunted the imagination of the North for 1,000 years. The terror of the thing that comes in the darkness when the fire dies down. We journey to the rim of the world, to the wind-swept shores of ancient Scandinavia, a land of granite fjords and long, dark winters. Here, the world was a hard place, carved by frost and fed by violence. This was the age of the Scops, the storytellers, and the age of the comitatus, the sacred bond between a lord and his thanes. The center of this world was not a temple, but the hall. The hall was the hearth, the sanctuary, the very womb of warmth and light amidst the howling chaos of the outer dark. To build a hall was to declare order against chaos. To defend it was the highest duty of a king. The greatest of these halls was Heorot, the Heart, built by King Hrothgar of the Danes, a monument to glory and civilization that shone like a beacon across the sea. But glory breeds envy, and light casts a shadow. Across the moors, in a haunted fens where the water is black and the air hangs thick with poison, lived a creature named Grendel. He was a descendant of Cain, the first killer, cast out from the sight of God and doomed to walk the waste places of the earth. He was a thing of Night Marisa, a fiend, a demon, a walker in the shadows. He was not a man, though he walked on two legs. He was a force of nature, the embodied resentment of all things wild and savage against the order of men. While Hrothgar and his warriors laughed and sang in Heorot, feasting on roasted boar and drinking sweet mead from golden cups, Grendel prowled the fens, his blood boiling with a malice as old as the hills. Then came the night the music died. The monster came to the hall. He came not as a warrior to fight, but as a butcher to slaughter. He shattered the heavy doors, grabbed 30 sleeping thanes, and dragged them screaming into the night, back to his slime-filled lair to feast on their flesh. The horror was absolute. The next morning, the floor of Heorot was a slaughterhouse. The morning was a storm that rent the sky. And so it began. Night after night, Grendel came. Heorot, built as a palace of joy, became a house of death. No warrior could stand against him, for the monster wielded a magicka no blade forged by man could harm him. He picked them off like wolves in a fold. Hrothgar, a mighty king, was brought low by despair, his glory turned to ash. But the world is wide, and heroes are made in the furnace of trouble. Across the Whale Road, in the land of the Geats, there lived a man named Beowulf. He was the mightiest man on earth, a hero of heroes, a man with the strength of 30 men in his grip of iron. When he heard of Hrothgar's sorrow, he did not hesitate. He gathered 14 of the finest warriors in Geatland, launched his ship onto the cold gray sea, and let the prow cut the waves towards Denmark. They landed like a storm, the sea-weary strangers stepping onto the rocky shore, their shields and armor clanking with the rhythm of war. They were challenged by the Danish Coast Guard, but Beowulf spoke with the gravity of a king. He had not come to spy, he had come to save. Beowulf marched to Heorot, a towering figure in shining mail. He stood before Hrothgar, the old king whose eyes were dark with grief, and made a boast that rang with the iron certainty of fate. He would fight Grendel. He would fight the monster on his own terms of hand to hand, with no sword, no shield, trusting only in his own strength and the favor of the WYRD, the destiny that weaves the fate of men. Hrothgar, seeing the hope he had lost, welcomed the Geat. Here it was cleaned, the mead benches were polished, and a feast was prepared that would be remembered forever. That night, the atmosphere was thick with doom. The Danes and Geats sat together, drinking mead from horns adorned with gold, listening to the Scops sing of the creation of the world, of how God shaped the earth and marked the boundaries of the water. But the laughter was tight, the eyes darted to the shadows. Beowulf sat apart, watching. He had cast aside his armor. He sat in his tunic, his massive frame tense like a coiled spring. He told them he wanted to meet Grendel in a fair fight or die trying. The king gave him the hall for the night. And then Hrothgar left his great hall for the last time, abandoning his throne to the mercy of the stranger. Silence fell. The fire burned low. The warriors laid down on their beds, clutching their swords, pretending to sleep, waiting for death. Then from a mist and the moor, the monster came. You could hear him moving through the night, a shadow against the stars. He approached the hall, his eyes glowing with a malice that burned like cold fire. He touched the door, and the iron bands, forged with fire and skill, snapped like dry twigs. Grendel tore the great timber door from its hinges. He stepped inside, his eyes greedy, his heart hungry for blood. The darkness had entered the light. In an instant, the demon was among them. He seized a sleeping warrior, ripped him open, and devoured him, bones crunching in the silence. But then his hand reached for the next sleeper, and for the first time in his life, Grendel felt not the soft flesh of a victim, but a grip like the jaws of a trap. Beowulf was awake. The hero rose, and the hall shook. He fastened his fingers on the Monstera S-arm, and the shock of it paralyzed Grendel. He had never felt fear, only hunger. Now, he felt terror. Beowulf held on, his fingers sinking into the Monstera S flesh, refusing to let go. Grendel thrashed, desperate to escape, but the Gita S grip was iron. He tried to flee back to the fawn, but Beowulf dragged him deeper into the hall. The monster screamed, a sound that shattered the silence, a shriek of pure panic. The pillars groaned, the mead benches were overturned, the very walls of Heorot trembled as the two titans wrestled. It was a clash of raw power, the embodiment of order against the embodiment of chaos. Grendel realized his doom. He was dying. His flesh was tearing. Beowulf twisted with a sudden, violent surge of strength and ripped the monster's arm clean from its socket. Sinew snapped, blood gushed, hot and dark onto the floor. Grendel fled, howling in agony, mortally wounded, leaving a trail of blood leading back to the hellish pool from which he came. He ran to die in the deeps, and in the morning, the sun rose on a new world. The warriors gathered in the shattered hall, marveling at the blood-stained ruin of the fight. They tracked the monster's trail to the dark water and saw the waves boiling with blood. They returned to Heorot in triumph. The arm of Grendel was nailed to the gable of the hall, a grisly trophy of the victory. The silence of the mere was broken. The nightmare was over. Hrothgar wept with joy, and the songs of the Scop rang out once more, louder than ever, singing the glory of Beowulf.